This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 274, baby. Oh yeah. In today's episode we have a new podcast guest today. Now, this was originally going to be one of the other podcasts, let's say, the ones I record with other teachers, podcasters, etc. But this particular conversation was and is so R&R that I thought, let's use it as a normal R&R Monday episode. Also because I'm doing a training course in Cambridge at the moment and don't have time to record another one. But that's not the point, because it really is a truly rock and roll conversation. Lots of stories, lots of laughs, lots of great stuff. So in today's episode, I talk to John from John's English page, who I found on Instagram because his posts are absolutely hilarious. Plus, he is English, an English teacher, and lives in Italy. Does that sound familiar? Because, of course, I am English, an English teacher, and I used to live in Italy, although that almost still hurts me to say that. I still feel that I do live in Italy, but never mind. So anyway, yes, John and I have a lot in common. So I was very excited to talk to him about the differences between England and Italy. Now, I know I have spoken about this before, so I tried to focus on other things, different things that I haven't spoken about before. Sure, there is some overlap, but lots of new stuff and new stories. And I just quickly want to say, although we both laugh and make jokes about things in Italy, we also laugh and make jokes about things in England, but obviously, John and I both absolutely love Italy. In fact, at the very end of the episode, John mentions how these differences are what makes him truly love Italy. Now, the very end of the episode, only members will hear, because we recorded this conversation and it was and is 40 minutes long. So sadly, I can't make a 40-minute transcript for one podcast. So I have divided this podcast into 20 minutes today and the rest in the members area, because otherwise it would kill me. So yes, we both do absolutely love Italy and all the differences. And speaking of these differences, not just between England and Italy, between all countries, these are what truly make life great and what is fantastic when we are in this international environment speaking to other people. So let's enjoy them and laugh at them together. So here is the episode where we discuss flip-flops in winter. Remember, flip-flops are beach shoes, let's say. The meaning or not meaning of the word summer, school holidays, happy Sundays, the difficulty of changing your habits, and dangerous sandwiches. So here is the episode. Happy listening. So hello John and welcome to Rock and Roll English.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. You caught my attention on Instagram. I'll obviously put links to John's stuff in the show notes, but you really caught my attention with your videos with Luigi, which is a kind of fictional character that you made, but it reminded me of so many interactions I've had with my students. So I thought, well, we could talk about the whole Italy thing, because you have been living in Italy for quite a while, haven't you?
I have actually, yeah. I've been here since 2003.
I mean, I thought I was Mr. Italy, but I mean, you've blown me out of the water. So nice vocabulary there. Like you've easily won this competition. I didn't know it was a competition, but apparently it is, and you have definitely won. 2003.
Yeah, I don't mind. You can be called Mr. Italy if you prefer, though. That's
I must admit, no one's ever called me that. I don't.
No, you named yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Not sure if that will stick. that name, but we will have to see. So 2003, and you live in the south as well, although not as south as where I was living. So I think I have won that competition. I was in Sicily. That's more south, surely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I suppose it depends where in Sicily. Where were you in Sicily?
I was in Palermo.
Okay, yeah. It's more or less the same, I think. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Damn. Yeah. I thought I had won at least one of these competitions.
Mr. South.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in Reggio Calabria, yeah?
Yeah.
Which, for the non-Italian listeners, it's maybe like, let's say, the toe of the boot that's kicking the ball, which is Sicily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like on the toe. It's like the toenail, or like the dirt under the toenail on the toe.
It's such a lovely way to describe it. The only time I've actually been there, I went for a teachers' conference, and I had to give a presentation as well. And I was talking about using stories in English lessons. Lots of teachers there, and I vividly remember looking at the audience of people. There were only about 30 or 40 people there, and about 50% of them were actually sleeping, because
really?
It'd been a long. Well, my excuse was it had been a long day traveling to arrive there, and it was late in the day, and I would say 50% of them were actually sleeping. So it was
not a boring presentation.
No, definitely not. Was the best ever. So obviously you've got even more experience of living in Italy than me. So I thought we could talk about some of the things that maybe. So we find strange, like obviously like being British, living in Italy, and things that they find strange about us, because I found that it never really stops, these things. And one thing you actually brought to my attention in our pre-podcast chat is how Italian people say buona domenica, which means like have a good Sunday. Which is a very strange thing, especially as some people say it to you on a Saturday. Have you come across this?
Yeah, I have. It throws you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing.
Absolutely. Some lovely vocabulary again there. It throws you. As John said, it really does confuse you. The first time I heard that, and someone said to me, like, have a good Sunday. And I was thinking, what fucking day of the week is it? I thought it was Saturday.
Well, you make a really bad impression by correcting them, don't you? So they say buona domenica, and you say it's Friday. Thinking you're clever.
Exactly, and then very quickly ending up with egg on your face, looking stupid. But that is definitely a strange thing. I think it's just so sacred, isn't it? Sunday in Italy. It's such a special day.
Well, also, Martin, it's probably to do with the fact that here they tend to think of the working week, as a 6-day week rather than a 5-day week. That's the impression that I get. So maybe Sunday is more important for them. Yeah.
So, for example, I mean, the biggest example of that jumps to my mind of the 6-day week is school. They have school on Saturday. Not all schools. I don't really understand how it works, but lots of schools go to school on Saturday. I mean, I couldn't think of anything worse than that as a child, teenager, going to school on a Saturday.
It's a crime, isn't it, against humanity?
It is. It really is. But on the flip side of that, something else I have on my list, and I saw an article recently that for the summer holidays, it's the longest in Europe, because they get basically 3 months off. They finish on like the 10th of June and go back on about the 10th of September. That's like a quarter of a year. That's mental.
Yeah. It's madness. But I, as a kid, I can imagine that must be an amazing thing. I mean, for a teacher, having 3 months off is already an absolute luxury. For a kid, it must seem like eternity. 3 months.
In fact, this is what I think, because when I was at school, I'm sure it was the same for you in the UK, you normally get like 6 weeks off, don't you?
Well, you did. I think it's shorter now.
Yeah, I think I heard that as well, actually. But yeah, so like, let's say in our day, 6 weeks. Yeah. And I remember going back to school like seeing people and being like, whoa, like I don't even recognize you almost, like you look so different.
They'd all grown.
Yeah, like different hairstyle, new bag, and just
Beard.
thinking like, yeah.
That's just the girls.
Exactly. But so what must it be like after 3 months? It must be like, who the hell are you? Like, because after just 6 weeks, which is like half of that time, I already couldn't recognize people. So
you got back to school and you'd forgotten how to write after 6 weeks. You imagine after 3 months.
Exactly. And I'd actually forgotten about that. I do actually remember that feeling of just sort of like, how do I use a pen? Because obviously, especially as a child, I mean, what else would you be writing for? Like you're just out playing, doing stupid stuff. But 3 months.
I used to spend 6 weeks writing in the summer, Martin. I don't know about you. Actually, funnily enough, as a teacher, I've seen what happens when they have 3 months off. And,
okay.
It's not pretty sometimes. You spend the rest of the year teaching them how to speak English, and then come back in from September and October. Really, it's everybody's forgotten everything.
Back to square one again. So back to the starting point. Yeah, I hope though that I haven't worked this out, but they make up the hours for the Saturday school thing. That's all I can hope. But like I said, 3 months is a bloody long time.
The year in general here does tend to work in that way. You have everybody stops in August, first of all. That doesn't happen in England.
No.
So here it's if you ask anybody to do anything here in June or July, they'll say ormai ottobre. Which means basically, now you have to wait until October or September.
The whole concept. I think maybe it might be connected to the weather. That like you said initially, they say like let's just wait till after the summer now because you've got this big event in the middle. But in England, I think maybe because the weather's so shit that the concept of summer just doesn't really fully exist.
It's just a word.
Yeah, it's just a word. That's all. It doesn't mean anything. It's literally just a word.
It's a false promise.
Yeah, but I mean, I must admit again. So I lived in Italy for like 12 years, and this is my first summer, I suppose, in England. Mm-hmm. And again, I remembered it being much better than this. Because I think, again, when I was a child, I was probably outside playing. So even if it was only like 19 degrees, for me, it seemed really hot because I was outside playing and stuff. But it really is shit, the weather here. Like, it really is bad. I always tried to defend my country when I was in Italy and say, like, no, the weather's not so bad. The food's not so bad. But I must admit, now I'm starting to regret both of those.
Well, I do actually, up until before COVID, BC, whatever you want to call
BC. I like that, yeah. Very nice. And for people that aren't familiar with that, that's obviously a play on the words of BC, before Christ, but now we can definitely use that before COVID. Fantastic. I'm definitely going to steal that, yeah.
Yeah, so before COVID, I used to take groups of teenagers to England to do like a study holiday for 2 weeks. And that would give me a taste of the British summer, which served a couple of purposes. Firstly, it made me remember why I'd moved to Italy in the first place. In terms of people's attitudes, everybody just seemed so miserable and petty. I don't know, maybe living in Reggio Calabria, where a rule has the same sort of value as the British word summer. It just doesn't exist. I would go back to England and everybody seemed to be really attached to rules. But in terms of the weather, I found myself often very hot, but always having to wear clothes because it was either raining or windy or changing every 2 minutes. And it's just depressing, really, because you're constantly feeling hot and you always seem to have things on you. And you take them off and then it's too cold and you just don't know how to dress.
Exactly. Whilst in Italy, and again, you actually have like some people do the change of season, don't they? Like you get rid of your winter clothes.
Cambio stagione.
Yeah, exactly. And when I had a very, very small apartment, I actually did this because the wardrobe was so small. And then I took the winter clothes and put them in a suitcase under my bed and then put my summer clothes in there. And then I told my friends in England about that once because I can't remember how it came up. And I said I had to move my summer clothes and they were like, what the fuck is that? Like what like it's just the concept just does not exist.
You can't even translate it. No.
I wouldn't wear a pair of socks basically from like easily June till like September, even like May. Just socks are just a waste of time because you're just, unless you've got like obviously a formal event, but otherwise socks and even jeans, like you would not wear a pair of jeans because it's too hot. Whilst pretty sure I'm still going out in jeans now, because otherwise, it's like you said, you're actually cold. But something you touched upon there that I want to talk about. You said you took these kids back to England for like a 2-week study, like trip thing. Now I've heard about these where it's just basically kids going there and doing anything but studying and like drinking and taking drugs. And
I can't say that because that was my business. So I have to say it depends who takes them, Martin.
Right. Okay. I'm just mentioning this because one of my close friends, my colleagues, from when I worked at school, he always did this. I always refused, basically because what he had told me. And he told me he had to actually stay on camp with them. And he said that people were like knocking on his door at like 3 o'clock in the morning for things that, I mean, one thing that I thought was hilarious. He said like a 13-year-old girl knocked on his door to tell him that, let's say, women's problems had started for her and she didn't know what to do. And so that was
the first time.
The first time. And she didn't know what to do. And she was looking for help from my friend, who was and is male.
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
No. And I don't think he knew what to do either, as I wouldn't.
Well, I know what to do, but I'm not going to do it.
But you didn't have that. Luckily.
Not that specific problem, no. There were various problems that we did have, but not that particular one. But right. It's not easy though. It's not easy. Okay. 20 teenagers.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. We've actually got a lot more fixed on just even the summer here. We could have just had a whole podcast about the Italian summer. But one of the other things, so this thing about wearing flip-flops, because in England, and my wife always says this, how English people love wearing flip-flops. And I must admit, here, I do see people wearing flip-flops when it's like 14 degrees. And I do think, why are you doing that? What is the point? I always wore them in the summer, but in Italy, well, it's certainly in Sicily, if you're wearing flip-flops, it means you're going to the beach. And I often had people say to me, are you going to the beach? When I was like, no, I'm going out for dinner.
I'm going to the post office.
or that, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I always found very annoying. Is this the same for you? Do you like the flip-flops? Have you gone into the Italian style of... Because I noticed lots of my male friends, like if we went out for dinner in the evening, they would think, right, I'm going to wear jeans and shoes and socks. And I'd be like, what? It's crazy. Why? It's only like dinner with me. I'm not important. So... why?
It's a good question. I think in some respects I have sort of fallen in, but I've been here for so long that it's almost difficult to remember what it was like before. I mean, so I used to wear flip-flops all the time. I knew I couldn't wear them to the school if I was going to teach there. That wasn't that extreme. But a couple of times people had pointed out to me, why are you wearing flip-flops when you're walking down the road? I didn't even seem like a valid question to me. It's just hot, and that was that,
Yeah.
But it'd be like October or something, and I'd be walking down the road in flip-flops. But, eventually, if enough people say it to you, you start to get a bit paranoid, and, it's like new rules. And, eventually, over the years, you kind of change your habits, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I think you're totally right. Another example of that for me is the thing of like, if you eat and then you get in the sea, then you're going to die, basically.
Oh God.
That's what I had never heard that at all. And so I got to Italy, I had something to eat and I was going to get in the sea, and then the person I was with said like, what are you doing? Like, this is like having a gun to your head. Like, no. And I was like, what? And for the first few years, I was just like saying like, don't be so stupid. But then towards the end, I wouldn't go near the sea after I'd even had like a sandwich or an ice cream, because I thought, and one time I did, an English friend that I was with said, look, don't be stupid. Let's get in the sea. We're not. And I honestly thought I was going to die. I didn't sleep that evening because I was thinking, this is it. This is the end. But so
waiting for it to happen. It's just a matter of time now.
Exactly. Have you heard that one as well?
Yeah, and I do nothing but make fun out of them. Although, you always find yourself outnumbered. But the thing is, everybody knows somebody who died. I've checked all the newspapers. I've listened to I've never seen anything official, but everybody knows somebody's cousin who had a sandwich, stepped in a puddle and just exploded.
Yeah, you're right. And it actually reminds me of when I was a child in England. There was a swimming pool near us, and there was like the diving boards, and you had three. So you had the one that was the same level as the water. You had the middle board and the top board. And there was always someone that said they knew someone that jumped off the top board, landed on their belly, so their stomach, and then their stomach just burst open and everything just came out.
All the sandwiches.
All the sandwiches just came out, which, I never saw that, but that also made me scared of jumping off the top diving board, because I thought, I don't want...
Well, look, I heard it all the time, and I used to make fun of them, and I would, I even went to the lengths of Googling it and looking for how much it's bullshit and stuff. But the trouble is that you find, the more that you look at these things, the more that the sort of these, what we call old wives' tales, don't we?
Right, okay,
these sort of thing, But very often, they do have some sort of bearing on the truth. And I think Italians generally are much more in touch with this kind of like intuitive side of life and nature. And in Britain, we've forgotten all that. And, old wives' tales start with a kernel of truth, and then they get exaggerated, and we're kind of stuck there, aren't we? That it's all exaggerated and we don't believe any of it. Whereas the Italians hold on to that kernel of truth. And if you trace it back, you might find some evidence which will back up some of the claims.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one of these things actually is a thermometer, so like to measure your body temperature. Now, when I came to Italy, I had no idea about body temperatures, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Whilst when I was living in Italy, anytime like I was sick or anyone was sick, they always... Well, if anytime anyone else was sick, they would have a thermometer. And when I was sick, they said, like, do you want a thermometer? And I was like, for what?
Yeah.
And because I think it's 38 means you have, well, they call it like febbre, so fever.
Yeah.
And then once as soon as that hits 38...
I can't help thinking of of John Travolta every time they say
oh, right,
fever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Fever.
Saturday Night Fever.
But as soon as that hits 38, then it's like you can just fall on the floor and say like, I can't do anything. I specifically remember being at work and someone was not feeling very well, had the thermometer, every 5 minutes checking, and then it got to 38, and then she said, right, I need to go home now. But I was thinking, but 5 minutes ago you were here and you were okay, but just because that says 38. But again, at the same time, I do that now. I have a thermometer, and because obviously my wife is Italian, and so I think I've just been so influenced. But so now I do that. If I'm feeling sick, I'm like, give me the thermometer. Oh, it's 37.8. I'm fine. 37.9. I'm fine. Oh, 38. Oh, that's it. So that's all we have time for in today's episode. Remember, if you want to listen to the rest of the episode, the next 20 minutes, you can do that in the members area, the Rock and Roll English family, which is the members area of the podcast, and where there are also more than 900 extra episodes. Remember, membership is closed, but when I have to do this and stop the podcast early, I open membership again for 48 hours. So if you look on the website now, and in 48 hours, it will be possible to become a member and listen to the rest of the conversation. So let's have a look at that R&R vocab, which I didn't really have time to highlight during the episode, but let's have a look. So at the beginning, I said that John has blown me out of the water in the Mr. Italy competition. So when you blow someone out of the water, you win easily, let's say. I then mentioned how I'm not sure if Mr. Italy will stick. So when a nickname sticks, you keep using it. For example, Boom Boom Cannon, a podcast regular, that name stuck. So we still use that today. We spoke how when someone says happy Sunday to you and it's only Saturday, it throws you. It kind of confuses you of like, what the hell's going on? And then if you say, sorry, it's only Saturday, you end up with egg on your face. You end up looking stupid because that's not what they were saying. They were not saying, oh, I think it's Sunday today. They are just wishing you a happy Sunday for the next day. John mentioned how after 3 months of not studying, when students go back, it's not pretty. A lovely term. It's not pretty. It's not good. And then I said, yeah, you have to go back to square one. So back to the beginning. John also mentioned how when he went to England, that everyone was just so miserable and petty. If you are petty, you pay too much attention to all of the stupid little details, the rules. You say, look, don't be so petty. Just stop being an idiot. He also mentioned you are outnumbered in Italy when talking about the fact that you can die if you jump in the water after eating. You are outnumbered. There are more of other people than you. He also mentioned that someone always knows someone who stepped in a puddle and exploded. So a puddle is when it rains, you have puddles on the floor. We also spoke about old wives' tales. Now, these are the things that your grandmother's grandmother told her, and they get passed down through generations that old wives speak about, old wives' tales. And he also mentioned there is always a kernel of truth. Lovely word there. A kernel of truth, like a small bit of truth in these things. And there we have it. And just on that fact, that term, a kernel of truth, is a quite common term, not something I would ever say. So this is why we have other people on the podcast, because each person, even if John and I speak the same language, he obviously uses different words to me. So this is the point of bringing people on the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember to check out John. I will put all of his links in the show notes, so go to the website to look at the latest podcast episode. Remember, if you want to listen to the rest of the episode, go to rockandrollenglish.com/family and you can become a member and listen to 900 extra episodes, but only for the next 48 hours. That's all for today. I will see you again in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.